Hi, my name is Judah Landsberg. This is for pre-vocational methods, and this is my final project. Um, so I have a student's transitional IEP here that we're going to go through. I'm going to just be lifting up and showing the different sections, but I'm covering up all the identifying information. I'm going to refer to the student just as the student or student A. And I'm not going to talk about any of his teachers or any of his classes really that he's in so that there's no ability to identify the student. Okay. So I'm going to go through pretty quickly just some identifying information, then go right into the transition part of his IEP. There's a lot of other parts of the IEP. It's a 29-page document. The transition part's about 4 pages of it. Okay. So this is just the beginning. It's This is just what our school IEPs look like. Okay, this is just school and student information. Has his name, his parents' name, if he's an ELA student, he's not, the date of the meeting, who was at the meeting. There was about 8 people there, including him, including me. What's his primary disability? It was ADD. Okay, so I'm going to, and then there's talks about his um, which tests he's taken, um, and that's kind of used as to support of why he should have continued services. Talks about an analysis of his reading, math, and writing skills. Um, okay, and then there's some charts with modifications and accommodations. Most of these have to do with um, his like increasing attention. Okay, moving to the transition section of his IEP. My school does, I think, a pretty good job, and I chose this particular student's transition IEP because I think that this is a particularly like tailored one to him. Um, okay, so there's a section here. It says transition to be completed annually. Okay, so they do talk to the student at least once a year. They give him an interview about what his current interests are and what his current goals are. And they mostly started with the students in ninth grade. I've been teaching 10th grade for the past few years. I've taught 11th and 12th grade. I've never seen them initiate it, but I've seen them go through it and like reaffirm and change it. And this is what this meeting was about. Okay, so it talks about students' preferences and interests. That's first. It's very good. They always like when they're talking about the student's future, they always first talk to the students. They question him in front of everybody, and the IEP chair is doing it and taking notes, which is good. So this is some notes on the meeting. What he enjoys playing: video games, music, and sports. He was on the basketball team for the school. He's pretty involved. Um, and what does he want to do? He already has a plan for after school, even though he's in 10th grade. He wants to go into the Army, and he also wants to consider taking college classes when he's in the Army. I think that he's very mature, understands himself. I think that's a great plan for him. I I don't think that it's a great plan for everybody. I'm not saying that like the Army is a great plan. I just think in particular, like his test scores are not really competitive. However, I think his best attributes are is like he's very polite, he's very nice, he's very social. He doesn't really like talk out of in the middle of the lesson. He understands and works within the rules, um, which is really good. And he's also very active. He wants to be like engaged. He'll raise his hand whenever he doesn't understand something, but like again, not in the middle of the lesson. So he's this a lot of I think it's a good decision for him. Okay, so there's parts of his post-secondary goals. One is employment, and that's the Army. The second is education. It says he will attend a college of his choice through the Army, like Army funding. And independent living goals, it says he does not have any independent living goals at this time. Um, Now he has a course of study. So his course of study has not been chosen yet. Okay. So that's one thing that probably they should be discussing soon. Um, and it also talks about his projected date of exit and what type of diploma he's going to get. He's supposed to get a regular diploma, and he's going to be in high school for 4 years. Okay, the next section is called transition activities. I also really like how they break this down from goals into activities. So it talks about his goals, and then it talks about activities that can get him towards them. Um, so for his academic activities, he's going to make a visit to a college. He's going to fill out a college application form. Um, that's great that they're talking about that already with him and that they have it. Although they didn't focus on it, I think that they probably could focus on it even more. The responsible party for filling out that activity is the student, and the parent, and the guidance counselor. There's 3 responsible parties there. Um, Now, there's an employment training activity, which is um, to through his through his trade to shadow an employee. I think that's also a really good goal. It doesn't talk about how he's going to do that. And the responsible party for that, again, is the student, the parent, and the guidance counselor. I think the vocational teacher should probably be added to that because a lot of times the teacher is the one that gets their top students or their students that are most willing to succeed into those types of programs. Okay, finally, there is an agency that is named that can help the student either like pretty much this is probably for after they graduate from high school, and that is identified as the Division of Rehabilitation Services, DORS. And it says that they are the anticipated agency for services for transition. So that is the transition part of the IEP. Um, just some analysis. Again, I think that this was a pretty well thought out transition plan and tailored pretty well to this particular student. First of all, the student wants to be doing this. It's a viable option and can like really help them in their future. Um, I I think that it's it's very likely because there's a lot of other students that he can rely on to help him get into the program. There's also like a college and career readiness employee at our school who can help him, and there's oftentimes people from the military will come to our school, and he had already met with them. Um, so that's good. I think that again they pointed out that he might want to join a JROTC class just so that he gets used to the different like training standards that he'll need to uphold as an officer. I think that that's a good thing to pinpoint. But again, I think that this is um, it's it's a good goal for this student as opposed to some other students where the goals are kind of more set by the student and not necessarily always realistic. Or the parent will like, for instance, one student wanted to live on her own and work, and she didn't really have an idea for what job she was going to do. Another student, their parent really wanted them to go to college, but their grades didn't necessarily justify that, and their scores especially did not. For a for a 4-year college, so I think that the student has like a good grasp on where he's going. Now, the only thing is, I think that it could have been more flushed out in terms of more details for how to achieve the goal. For instance, like going to a career fair. When is that fair? What are like specific grades that he has to get? What are specific things like not getting into trouble? Making sure that that he has good attendance, making sure that he has references from his teachers. I think that that type of thing could probably be talked about already with a student in 10th grade. Um, he's been at the school almost 2 years. He knows people. And I think that it could be discussed more. One last thing, his mom was not in attendance at the meeting. She was at work. His aunt was there. His aunt didn't really have much to add to the conversation. So I think that these types of things are something that could enhance the transitional IEP, having his parents there and talking to him more about like specifics of the process. I think he's definitely ready, and especially this coming year, he'll be in 11th grade. It should be addressed. Um, so that's pretty much it for the transitional IEP. Thank you so much for this class, and I hope you have a good rest of the summer. Take care.